Good day. Welcome. This is your Daily Med with Lady V. Grace and peace be multiplied. We have been looking at Ecclesiastes, what the wise man Solomon says about fearing God and keeping his commandments, because it is the complete duty of man. He also tells us that we should remember our Creator, the God who created us in the days of our youth, because He is saying to us, a day is coming when all our youthfulness, the desires that we have in our youthful days, would have been past, and old age would have come upon us, and even the desires that we normally would have will fail. So he says to us, just remember God in all that we do. Remember, He created us, and the purpose for which we were created is that we would serve Him. Because He says the evil days are coming. When we are in old age, we always hear the reference, once a man, twice a child. I heard a little joke somebody made about Huggies, and also about Pampers and Depends. When you are a child, or we have children, they will wear Huggies, and no hard feelings when this diaper has to be changed. You will change them, take their Huggies off, and give them a hug. Then you will also have their Pampers. You will change it, and you will also pamper them. You will shower them with your love. But when it comes to the Depends, the one that the adults wear, somebody says it only depends. It depends on who you have, who is your caregiver. It depends on how loving that caregiver is, that there will be a change, and it still depends on how much they still love and care for you. It is a fact of life that when old age comes, the older folks has to depend on the younger folks. And many times the older folks in their activities become, as it were, a burden to those that are younger. But even in such a stage, it is a lesson that the younger one will know that pretty soon, before you think about it seriously, old age will be upon you. And not only old age, but the wise man says man is heading to their long home, meaning death will set in. And so while we are young, let us heed the warning or the wisdom of the wise man Solomon, because before we know long, all these things will come upon us. So let us acknowledge God, who is our creator, and do his commands, serve him the way he says he should be served. Remember, there is an eternal God, and there is also eternity. And not only that, there is accountability. And Solomon goes on to tell us, when we look at everything at the end of the day, all is vanity. So without God, all is vanity. A few scriptures I want to leave with you today is, if we have learning, but that learning is only godless learning, then it brings on cynicism. And Solomon tells us that in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 7 and 8. It tells us if we are great, but if it is without God, then it is godless greatness, and it brings sorrow. In Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 16 and 17. He also says to us when we have pleasure, but those pleasures are godless pleasures, it brings disappointment. And he points that out to us in Ecclesiastes chapter 2 and verse 1 and 2. He says, if we labor, but we labor without God, it is also godless labor, and it brings hatred of life. In Ecclesiastes 2 and verse 17, he says, if we have philosophy, and that philosophy is godless, then it is godless philosophy. It brings emptiness. In chapter 3, verse 1 and 9, or Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 through 9. He says, if we decide to spend our eternity but not considering God, then it is godless eternity, and it will bring unfulfillment. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 11. If we live a life without God, it is a godless life, and it will bring depression, depicted in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 2 and 3. What about religion? Because religion is not godliness. So if we live just saying, oh, I'm religious, or I belong to such a religion with practices without God or without what the Bible says, it's godless religion. And therefore it will bring dread. It will bring fear. Ecclesiastes 5 and verse 7. If we acquire wealth, we see the rich young ruler, he acquired wealth, but he did not think about eternity. Therefore, that wealth was godless wealth, and he see trouble. Because when he thought he had many days to store up his riches, his soul was required of him that night. So we see that in Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and 12, that godless wealth gives trouble. When we talk about godless existence, we live all our lives not thinking about our creator. It brings frustration. At the end of the day, Ecclesiastes 6 and verse 12, when we talk about wisdom, many people say, I am wise. I know what I am doing. But godless wisdom brings despair. In Ecclesiastes 11, verse 1 through 8. But the Bible tells us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A deep, serious attitude towards God and His commands, what He requires of us. Godly fear find its fulfillment in trusting in God. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13 and 14. It says a day is coming when we have to come to a conclusion. It says in verse 13 and 14, let us hear the conclusion. What is the bottom line of the whole matter? Fear God, keep his commandments, for this is man's all. For God will bring every work into judgment, including the secret things, whether they are good or whether they are evil. So, my friends, you are implored, fear God. God bless you. Thank you again for watching. Please like, please share, please subscribe, and continue to visit my YouTube channel, Daily Med with Lady V.